I just realized that working at Tesla taught me how to resist the US takeover. For 6 years, I worked various roles at Tesla. My last 3 years there as a store leader is the experience that gave me this insight. One of the most challenging and rewarding parts of working there was the end of quarter push called EOQ. It's the time of each quarter when the entire company is aligned completely. Everyone shifts their focus to push the company to a successful outcome. For a while, we Americans have been fighting one another as if we're crabs in a barrel. Everyone focused on dragging one another down rather than uplifting each other. Then we voted, and the results made the barrel feel almost like a bottomless pit. So, how do we align as Americans? What I'm seeing from abroad, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm seeing from outside the US is that people are upset. They are upset and unsure of what to do. They're asking about what the government is doing to stop this, what the government will do to fix this. They're waiting for someone to start a movement. By now, I would have expected to have heard from Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Biden, maybe a statement about how what is happening is not okay. I know it goes against traditional norms, the ones where past presidents stay out of the business of the current president. But we can all agree that so many more important norms have been broken. Furthermore, if I'm reading this right, they get paid by the taxpayers, so maybe there should be a little work involved to help the people. Look, it took a while to get where we are right now, and it's going to take even longer for us to get out of here. We're evolved people who know how to think critically. So you know that waiting on the government that allowed this to happen is not what we should be doing right now. It's time to organize. If you haven't signed up with a grassroots organization in your area yet, that's the step you should be taking right now. There is no excuse for taking an avoidance standpoint or ignoring what is happening. You have to check back in. If you say that what is happening right now is not what you want, then you have to be a part of changing it. You don't need to create something, you just have to be a part of something. If you don't know where to look, it's time to open your eyes. There are organizations all over the country that you can be a part of. No more withdrawals. It's time to make your deposit because you don't get to complain if you aren't willing to do anything about the problem. Without manufacturing, logistics, sales and delivery, finance, and service, not a single car would make it to customers. But the teams outside of these had to help too. At Tesla, departments that had nothing to do with physical cars, they were expected to participate in the EOQ push because without them, the goal for the quarter would not be achieved. Vehicle registrations, accounting, engineering, solar, charging, construction, HR, recruiting, legal. I'm sure I've missed a ton. These folks, they drive the business too, but they have a different impact. These teams generally have nothing to do with getting cars to customers. Some of them are even completely siloed from that area of business altogether. But at EOQ, these teams put all non-essential work on the back burner. This is so that they can support in achieving the shared goal. I'm sure they had to be nervous. Imagine you go in to support one day and you mess up. You're the one who's responsible for releasing a $100,000 car without collecting payment. It's terrifying. But they weren't on their own. That would never have happened. They were a part of a collective, a team of folks who looked after one another to make sure that each of us was thriving. They wouldn't be put in a situation like that to make such a misstep. For a time, Red Skull even asked customers to help out in the field. These people would come in on their personal time and assist with customer orientations at Tesla stores. They were not paid. They were there because they wanted to make a difference. It was important to them to make sure that the people joining their community would have the best experience possible. They would introduce people to their new cars. They would spend hours teaching people how to use the cars that they just bought. Thinking back on that, it was wild. Again, they weren't paid. They did this on their own personal time. Please tell me in the comments if this was you. I loved the support. It truly made the end of quarter tsunami feel a lot less overwhelming. Like Tesla stores, grassroots movements, they're decentralized. They're community-driven efforts to create change. They rely on collective action from ordinary people just like you. I want you to think civil rights movement, which was built on local organizing and personal connections. These movements, they often succeed by leveraging unexpected allies or using unconventional tactics. Think about how the Montgomery boycott started as a one-day boycott with over 90% participation of Black riders. As a store leader, my role was that of a community organizer of sorts. It was my responsibility to ensure that every available car at my location was delivered on time and legally. I'd accumulate resources. Things change fast at companies like Tesla, so gathering information and ensuring it was current and accessible was imperative. Things that were essential to last quarter were likely not applicable to the next quarter. It was my job, along with my teams, to prepare for the day's work, to make sure that the volunteers had everything they needed to be successful. Because without them, we would all likely fail. I had team members who were good at getting folks in and out of their appointments quickly, those who were fantastic at gathering new customers for sales for the next quarter. There were some who were just expert at paperwork, that attention to detail, and knowing who was best at what and making sure that they were staged where they would be most effective. It was my responsibility. I partnered my team members with volunteer staff, making sure that I placed volunteers in roles that aligned with their strengths. Not everyone was well suited to talk to customers. Some had enough attention to detail to place tags and registrations with cars. Others were trusted to drive the cars to the staging areas. The important point was to place people where they were most confident. We wanted people in places they would be most effective so that they could be impactful. We'd often have to disrupt the perception of what the support team thought the delivery experience would be. They may have had a preconceived idea of what the experience was like. It was my job to reset those expectations so that they understood the playbook and their role in it. The days of EOQ are long and taxing, especially if you worked at a delivery center like mine. It was an old location. It didn't have enough parking for the volume of cars that was going through it. We had to work together or we'd fall apart. We prepared ourselves for very long days. Even though it was really only 2 weeks, it was definitely a marathon. The boycott in Montgomery, it was a marathon. It ended after 381 days. At EOQ, emotions would run high. Things that we would not expect would happen, they'd happen, and we'd work through them. Everyone was tired. As we get close to finishing, we get an email from Red Skull telling us we can do more, that we always do more, so do more, and then we do more. On the last day of the quarter, we'd all be exhausted. By the end of the day, each store would know if their contribution was successful. It's as though each store was a chapter of a grassroots organization. Days later, we'd all know if we'd achieved our goal together as a company. And while I was there, we were always triumphant. These movements, they're a way that ordinary people can refuse the status quo. Status quo is what's got us here. So if you haven't done anything to impact change, if you've done nothing to turn this country away from the direction it's heading, it's time for you to take part, because you don't get to complain unless you do something about it. Did I mention anything of significance that Red Skull did? No. It was the Parasite class that made victory possible. It's a collection of coordinated groups working simultaneously toward the same goal. Please stop looking for something big to happen. Start by becoming a part of something small that helps to move the needle in big ways. Now it's time for you to do something. You have a choice. You can be a tool to fix the problem, or you can just be a tool who complains about the problem. Okay, bye.